Welfare Committee to order. I'm going to ask that item 1, 2, and 4 be put on consent without objection. By the way, we have a quorum. I should note Councilmember O'Farrell and myself, and those will be on consent and passed without objection. Item number 3.
Item 3, motion Englander Weezer relative to amending the Los Angeles Administrative Code Section 4.203 to authorize voluntary payroll deductions from all current and retired city employees to contribute to the Parker Foundation Civilian Wellness Program.
Good afternoon. Yvette Burney from LAPD Scientific Investigation Division. I'm a board member for the Civilian Wellness Fund.
Hello, my name is Tony Diaz, and I'm the Civilian Wellness Coordinator for LAPD. I'm a management analyst, and I am the president.
Very good. I wonder if you could briefly tell us about the program?
You want to go ahead?
Yes. Last year in July, the Memorial Foundation decided that it was not feasible for them to support civilians in a financial, in any financial situation. So they decided to no longer have us enrolled. Not enrolled exactly, but no longer with the Memorial Foundation. So as civilians, as the president, to be honest with you, and as the Civilian Wellness Coordinator, I know what it's like that these civilians are going through financial hardships, and also when they're experiencing a catastrophic illness. So I and other individuals in the department decided to try to form our own foundation, kind of. And what we did an outreach to the Parker Foundation, and they took us under their wing, and they said, yes, we can support you. And the only way that we can bring in funds is through payroll deduction of our employees.
Okay, and this motion is asking that the administrative code be amended so that the Wellness Foundation can collect payroll deductions.
That's correct, sir.
And the police department currently has its own payroll deduction plan?
Well, the Parker Foundation has their own deduction, but it's only for sworn. So they cannot add civilians, so we need to have our own deduction code.
And as I understand it, the CAO will need to report back to this committee to determine if the foundation meets the requirements of the administrative code. Is that correct? Legally, I believe?
Yes. We'll prepare a report to report back to committee.
Other questions? And I should note for the record, Councilmember Fuentes has joined us as well. If there's no other questions, we'll have that referred back to the CAO to send that report back to us. So,
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Will we hold this committee pending the report back now?
Yes, we'll hold the committee. Item number 5.
Item number 5 has been continued for March 20th, 2012 and March 18th, 2014. Department of Animal Services reports in response to motion Cardenas Rosendahl relative to the implementation of an annual cap on the amount of dog licensing revenue deposited into the general fund based on fiscal year 2009-10 amounts, with any additional revenue collected over the cap being deposited into the Animal Welfare Trust Fund. This matter has also been referred to the Budget and Finance Committee.
How are you?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair.
I wonder if you could walk us through your report.
Sure.
Back.
John Chavez with the Department of Animal Services. Last March, we prepared a report back relative to a motion. That motion would have capped the amount of dog licensing revenue that went into the general fund and anything above that cap would have been directed into one of our trust funds. We no longer supported that concept, so when we came to committee in March, we said that we recommended that the report be noted and filed. However, the committee had a bunch of questions for us. We listened to the tape. We were asked to report back on those questions. So I listened to the tape, noted all the questions, came up with responses, and that is the report that's before you. We hope we answered all your questions. However, I'm here to answer any other questions that you might have.
So why exactly did you oppose this change? Or, well, I'll just ask that.
The cap?
Yeah.
We like the concept of redirecting money into the trust fund, but we recognize that would have been a very difficult thing to get approved in council, given that would have affected the general fund, and that's always a big issue. So we backed away from that, and that's why we took a different position, which was to just we didn't support that any longer, and we wanted that initial recommendation just noted and filed.
So do you think you're able to fund spay and neuter adequately for the needs of the city without doing that?
Yes. Yes, we do, council member. We have, as you know, we do get a subsidy from the general fund. We get donations, and for every license that we sell, we get either $7 or $2. We also have some savings still in our animal sterilization fund. So for next year, we should be able to provide all the services that we do now and even some additional contracts and be okay.
Yeah, I think my greater concern was that we weren't doing enough funding of spay and neuter. Why did the number of spay and neuter surgeries decline over the last 5 years?
What happened was, as you know, we used to issue our vouchers out in the field, and that became a bit of a problem with the controller's office. We stopped doing that. So on the one hand, issuing vouchers out in the field allowed our vouchers to be in the public more than it is now, but at the same time it did create some problems for us in terms of fiscal control. We also have increased the number of in-house spay and neuter surgeries. These are the surgeries that our vets do. That number has gone up dramatically. We used to do probably 2,000 a year. For this fiscal year, we'll probably do 6,000. So for every surgery that our vets do, we don't have to pay a private vet, and we don't have to use the animal sterilization fund. And the other factor, I think, that led to a decline in the number of sterilization surgeries was, I think we were too restrictive in documenting or accepting the documentation that a low-income person would have to provide. We used to just say, you have to give us a copy of your DWP bill, you have to be a Lifeline participant, and as we know, not everybody can put their name on that DWP bill. So we've gotten a little bit more liberal in what we accept as for low-income documentation, W-2s, checks, copy of their checks, income taxes, and that kind of thing. But we expect next year to really see, not even next year, even starting now, see an increase in our sterilizations. We have a new contractor on board. When I last reported to you in March, we had not yet executed a contract with the ASPCA. They're now over in South LA. We have a $500,000 contract with them. They should be doing about 4,000 surgeries this year. This committee will also be seeing a recommendation from our department relative to another mobile spay and neuter van by Spay for LA. So we think that the numbers of surgeries can increase 30 to 35,000 per year.
And how much money do we expect to have left over in the fund at the end of this fiscal year to carry over into next year?
We will have about $2 million in savings. However, as I said, that money will go quick because we did execute a contract for $500,000 with the ASPCA. There'll be another $500,000 contract for a mobile spay and neuter. The other equation is we're going to be reaching out to more vets to take advantage of our programs, to be under contract, if you will, to provide surgery for our vouchers. And so that's one of the metrics that we have next year in our budget, is to increase the number of participating vets in our programs. If we do that, we can also increase the number of surgeries.
And do you expect to have much money left at the end of this coming fiscal year, or will you be able to catch up and do more spays and neuters and use that?
We'll have to really track that closely, Councilman. I mean, we strike a balance between doing a lot more surgeries, but making sure that we don't bust the budget either. But next year we'll be okay. We'll have to be doing some projections and monitoring on a monthly basis. But by the time it comes to budget, or start preparing our budget later on in the fall, we'll have a much better sense of how much additional money, if any, we'll need for 2015-16.
Thank you. Other questions? Mr. O'Farrell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. John, first of all, thank you for answering all those questions so thoroughly like you did. I appreciate that. You've already answered one of the questions I had just now, but I have one other, and that is something that jumped out at me was in relation to question number 7. The surcharge for altered licenses was raised from 2 to 7 some years ago, but for unaltered, it's still $2. That seems to be a disincentive, right? Because the incentive is to alter the animals. So what do you recommend? Can we do something about that? What do we need to do? Because I want to, incent everyone to alter their animals.
Sure. It was a question that came, Councilman Koretz had that question about the 2 versus the 7, and we're not very successful in determining why those numbers changed, other than they did. Right now, we're not proposing to change those fees. If the committee, if council believes that we should be changing them, we're certainly open to that. But at this point, we're not doing it. We're not going to be proposing that, but certainly are open to any suggestions from the committee.
And forgive me if this was asked last time, but do we remember why it was changed in 2006? Why it was raised from 2 to 7?
I could not get that information, unfortunately. We tried. We did change it, but in terms of the impetus for that change, I'm sorry, I couldn't get a definitive answer on that.
Maybe we're about to have one.
Yes, maybe
Great.
we have one arrive.
Yes. Assistant City Attorney Dov Lassell. I was with the department then when that changed. The original fee was $15. And there was a decision to raise that, I think, for budgetary purposes from $15 to $20. And there were a number of voices on the City Council that suggested that increased $5 would go into the Spay and Neuter Trust Fund, which is why we have this anomaly now of 5 plus 2 and 2. So there's only $2 coming out of the $100 into the spay and neuter, but $7 out of the other, out of the altered license.
The good news is that the incremental increase is going to spay and neuter.
Yes.
Okay, so it's that makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? We have a speaker from the public, Phyllis Dougherty.
I gave him something for you. I'll wait till. Phyllis Dougherty. I just wanted you to see how carefully this is crafted in the food and ag section. The establishment of the spay-neuter money was something that was done, under Joel Wax, and then the $5 increase was allowed only because it was actually a special fund. It wasn't actually in the dog license section itself. It was added on, and it worked, and it's okay. But you can see it for the benefit of everyone here that the Food and Ag Code section that says that all fees for the issuance of dog license tags and fines collected shall be paid to the city and county's treasury, and shall be used, first, to pay the fees for the issuance of the tags, second, to pay fees, salaries, cost, expenses for any and all enforcement of this division and ordinance pursuant to this division. And I think that's how they got in the spay-neuter. Maybe it's a little on the edge, but we got it in. Then third, to pay damages to owners of livestock which are killed by dogs. And fourth, to pay the cost of any hospitalization or emergency care for animals within Section 597F, which is the maimed and tortured clause of the Penal Code. So they were very specific. We've been working with this particular section in Sacramento a lot recently in regard to training animal control officers. So it's very, very specific, and you can't just use it. The other thing is putting it in the Animal Welfare Trust Fund would mean putting tax money into a charitable donation fund. And I don't think that you're going to get that probably very well passed, not only locally, but probably at the state level. You'd probably run into a lot of problems with that when you start creating a slush fund. Once these licenses start bringing in more profit than we are spending to collect them, then we are required to reduce our licensing fee, because you can't make a profit on taxing people for a dog license, as many other things. So we're probably better off just like we are now, and we're getting everything done.
Thank you. And if there are no other comments, we will note and file this item without objection. And there being no other business before us, we are adjourned.